Please welcome, via the miracle of digital technology, Daphne Koller.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. If not, somebody better say something. It's a pleasure to be there virtually, and so thank you very much for the invitation. Let me start my screen share now so you could actually see the slides, and hopefully that'll work, although you will not then be able to see me, so I guess it's one or the other. This online revolution started out in the fall of 2011 with a big experiment that Stanford did where we took three graduate level courses in computer science and put them up available for anyone in the world to take for free. We were expecting an enrollment of a few thousand people, but within a matter of weeks, each of those courses had an enrollment of 100,000 students or more. And to put that number in perspective, the largest of these courses, as taught at Stanford, has an enrollment of 400. It's considered a large class even by Stanford standards, but 100,000 students was a big surprise to us. And if you think about what that number means, in order to reach that same size audience, my colleague Andrew, who teaches that class, would have to teach it for 250 years. So obviously not a tenable solution, and furthermore, one that would only reach 250 generations of privileged Stanford students, as opposed to the students from every age group, every country, and every walk of life that were able to gain the benefit of taking this class. So that caused us to sort of rethink what we wanted to do and how one can leverage this amazing opportunity for offering education to so many people at what is effectively a zero marginal cost per student. The cost of serving any additional student is closer to $0 than to $1. And so in order to do that, we ended up spinning this out of Stanford and forming Coursera, which is a social entrepreneurship company based on strong pedagogical foundations that partners with universities in order to help them provide education freely available to the world. We currently have over 3.4 million students from 221 countries, every country around the world, offering 368 courses across the range of disciplines. 69 universities that are offering 368 courses across the range of disciplines. So let me talk a little bit first about the universities and then a little bit about the students. So we're privileged to be able to partner with some of the world's best universities. This slide shows the US-based universities. And you can see a whole range of universities, publics and privates, specialty schools in the arts or in music, as well as some institutions that have a very strong effort in the liberal arts education, including Brown, Wesleyan, and many of the other private institutions that really focus on that. These are the US-based institutions, 38 of them. 24 are non-US based, and they are from Europe, from Asia, from Latin America. We're fortunate enough to have the top one or two or both universities from 14 different countries offering courses on Coursera in 5 different languages: English, French, Spanish, Chinese, and Italian. As well as many courses that are really specialized to the culture of their own and the expertise of their own countries. Let me talk a little bit about the 3.4 million students, and I'm going to tell you 3 different types of access stories. These are the international students who have benefited from this. So for example, on the left is Raul, who's from Peru. He wanted to be a computer scientist, but there isn't that much of that in Peru. So he took a bunch of computer science courses, used that as the basis for a Fulbright application, and is now coming to study in the United States as a Fulbright scholar. Jolene is from Pakistan. She took the Sociology 101 course, was inspired by what she learned there, and founded an NGO in Pakistan with one of her fellow classmates. And now they're taking additional courses to learn how to run their NGO better. And Achint is an Indian student from a small town, wanted to become an entrepreneur, didn't really have an opportunity to go to a really competitive college, but took the gamification class from Wharton and is now participating in an all-India entrepreneurship competition. So that's one example of access. Let me bring it a little bit closer to home. with 10 students. This is a project by Sharon Watkins in Ohio, who brought together a group of people, mostly women, who have not had much of a chance at life. They grew up in very poor neighborhoods. Most of them, except for one, don't really have a college degree. They're in their 40s and 50s, living on a low income or a fixed income. They were brought together to form a group that selected together the course they wanted to take. They decided on an entrepreneurship class from the Darden Business School in the University of Virginia, and they took that class together, facilitated by Sharon. And the results, I think, are really remarkable because 10 people enrolled the class, 9 people completed it, and 6 people passed the exam. Remember, these are people without much education that passed a Darden Business School course. And the amount of pride that they take in that accomplishment, you read their testimonials, is just amazing. And then finally, one other kind of access that I think is worth highlighting, because it really is very touching when you think about this. On the right here is Daniel, sitting in this picture. Daniel is a 17-year-old boy who's severely autistic. He has a speaking vocabulary of about 150 words, but communicates by typing on an iPad. By doing so, Daniel was a star student in the University of Pennsylvania Modern and Contemporary American Poetry class. And that's the instructor, Al Filry, sitting on the left. Daniel tells us that this is the first meaningful educational experience that he's had after a life of special ed. And that now he is taking other classes, also primarily in the humanities, and these are actually helping to diminish the severity of his autism. So this is yet another kind of access that this type of educational opportunity opens to people in of different types of limitations and disabilities, be it cognitive disabilities or health disabilities. So let me talk a little bit about the student experience. One of the things that distinguishes this experience from a lot of open courseware initiatives is that this is an attempt to provide to students something that resembles a real course experience. The course begins on a given day, and every week there's content the students are responsible for learning, and there's homework that the students need to do. And the homework is graded, students are given feedback, and if they don't do their homework, they don't pass the course. And you can see the impact of that in the usage graph shown in this image, where the x-axis is time and the y-axis is load on site, and you can see those bumps. Those bumps are the day before the deadline. So everybody, just like on our college campus, does their homework the day before the deadline. And then finally, at the end, there is this certificate that the students get that gives them some kind of value or recognition for the work that they did. And we're told by them that it's very important for them personally, as well as potentially opens the door to a better job. Let me talk a little bit about some of the components of this. So first of all, although there's a lot of, there's video modules that represent pieces of lecture. These are short pieces, and they are themselves interactive. So let me show you, I hope the video comes through, what this experience looks like.
These 4 things: prospect theory, hyperbolic
so this is the
discounting,
model
statistical
thinking
bias,
class
base rate
Michigan.
bias. They're all well documented.
And when the video hits the yellow knot, the video pauses, the student gets asked a question that they get to answer. And they're told if they're right or wrong, and they have an opportunity to try again. Now, this is the same kind of question that a student might get asked in class in a large lecture by an instructor, but in a large lecture class, only a very small number of students actually have the chance to engage with a question. Most of the others are still scribbling the last thing the professor said. Here, every student engages with the question. Now, this, of course, is not where the meaningful learning happens. The meaningful learning happens when students actively engage with the material and do meaningful homework. And so how do you grade the work of 100,000 students? So there's 2 answers that we've put together, each of which turns out to have interesting pedagogical benefits. The first is computer-based grading. And computers can now grade a fairly broad range of different types of work, and I'm not going to talk about grading of computer programs or simulations or math or so on. There's a whole lot of really exciting technology for that. But the interesting aspect of computer grading is that it's not just a scalability mechanism. It's also a learning tool. Because what happens when students get immediate feedback about their achievement is that it turns this into a game. As opposed to something that you get 3 weeks later where it's really too late for you to fix things, here you're told immediately that you're not getting it. And so the students naturally say, well, I can do better than that, and they submit and resubmit. And so what you get here, what you see here is the blue bars is the initial score distribution for an assignment, and the green bars are the final distribution for that same assignment, and you can see that people gravitate towards a perfect or close to perfect score. Now the question is, does that actually help? Because of course, if you give somebody enough attempts, of random guessing will get them to the right answer, one might think. But it turns out that this actually does help. So if you do analytics where you figure out, you look at students who have comparable current performance, the ones who engage in this mastery learning do better, not just on this assignment, but also on the next one, showing that this mastery learning gives you a better basis for future work. The other place where we've put in a lot of work is in mechanisms for grading and providing useful feedback for the kind of work that computers currently cannot effectively grade, like essay questions, designs, and so on and so forth. So here we've used a mechanism called peer grading that combines ideas from peer review in small classes with ideas from crowdsourcing from places like Wikipedia. And this uses a grading rubric that is carefully designed by the instructor. And it turns out that if the grading rubric is well designed, the feedback provided by fellow students can actually be surprisingly good. This is an analysis done in the Princeton sociology class. It's a very humanitarian sociology class. X-axis is the teacher score assigned to every single one of the 1,200 final exams in that class, all essay questions. And the Y-axis is the peer score, and you can see a very strong correlation between them, suggesting that this is a really valuable way of providing meaningful feedback to students. Now, this kind of methodology actually allows us to deal with the kinds of assignments that you didn't think would ever be gradable at this scale. So here, for example, is an assignment from the Wharton design class, where people really spent an entire semester doing a design all the way from the problem specification up until an actual artifact, and got feedback from fellow students at every single step of the way, which really enriched the learning experience for them, providing them with the ability to produce some remarkable artifacts like the ones that you've seen here. So I mentioned earlier that peer grading, just like auto grading, actually has important pedagogical benefits. Students continually tell us that that they learn as much from grading the work of their peers as they do from doing the work by themselves, because they tackle a problem after having first they tackle a problem, they solve it in a certain way, and then they see 5 different solutions from 5 other people to the same problem. And we all know that seeing different solutions to the same problem is a critical component in creativity. And so now instructors that adopted peer grading in the MOOC for doing scale grading now are using it also in their on-campus classes. So the third pillar of the course of the MOOC experience is actually the community, and I'd like to highlight that using one of the courses from Wesleyan University, a liberal arts college, and our first liberal arts college. These are the 6 courses that Wesleyan put together, and I'm going to highlight the modern and the postmodern, which is taught by Michael Roth, who's the president of Wesleyan. So here is the webpage from Michael Roth's class. And you can see this is the kind of discourse and discussions that he has with his students in his class. So what idea have you found most fruitful to think with? And the student answers, Baudelaire has captured me. I love the living and the feeling of participation. And he carries a Paris spleen around town with me as he walks and he bikes because of the passion that Professor Roth has been able to inspire in these students. And then this also illustrates the impact that this has on people's lives. So here's another posting from the forum of a student that says that he's from the UK and England, and he spends most of his time looking after his mother who has dementia. And this is really a way for him to have any kind of access to the outside world. And as a response to this, several other students responded that they have similar issues. And so it really created a sense of community for this student that he'd never had before that. In addition to this online community, there's also physical communities. You can see there's a global network of communities of students coming together once a week to meet and discuss the content, and there's over 2,500 of them currently in different cities around the world. So there's an opportunity for them to get to know each other in person as well. So let me talk very briefly about improving learning outcomes and places where we think this might happen. So first, we think we can improve learning just on even just in the online experience. So this gives you a unique opportunity to understand our courses and what's working and what's not. So for example, here is a distribution of wrong student answers in one of the courses. And each little cross is a one-off wrong answer, but the big cross is a the wrong answer where 2,000 students made the exact same mistake. And so now you can understand what the issues are with this problem, and furthermore give students personalized feedback so that any other student whose answer goes into that bucket can now get feedback that tells them how to correct their thinking. So this leads me to one of the big opportunities here, which is improving learning outcomes using online technology. About 30 years ago, Benjamin Bloom identified what he called the 2 sigma problem. He studied the distribution of achievement scores in 3 populations: students taught in a lecture, students taught in a lecture in a mastery learning format where you had to figure out the first topic before moving on to the next, and students taught with an individual human tutor. And you can see there's a full standard deviation, or sigma, in achievement scores between these populations. Now, 2 sigma difference in achievement scores is an amazing thing to achieve, but as Benjamin Bloom pointed out, we cannot actually do that because as a society, we can't afford an individual tutor for every student. But maybe we can afford a tablet or a smartphone. And so the question now, can we use technology to achieve those same learning benefits? And we believe the answer might be yes. Computers are really good at mastery learning. They don't care if you have to watch the same video 5 times. They don't even get judgmental. Individual tutoring is a little harder, but we think that it's a fascinating research question to think about how you personalize the learning experience using big data to the needs of individual students. The second place where we can improve learning outcomes is in our own college campuses, maybe not in small liberal arts classes where few students can benefit from this, but in many classes, this is not an unfair characterization of the college experience. That college is a place where a professor's lecture notes go straight to the student's lecture notes without passing through the brains of either. And so maybe what we ought to do is, instead of putting students in an auditorium and having them just sit passively and take notes, instead of that, we can move from this to something that looks more like this, where content is obtained offline in a way that allows students to engage actively with the material, and then they come to class to get the same kind of experience that those of you who attend a place like Lawrence might get on a regular basis, but most students don't, which is the small group interaction with active learning. So let me skip past this since I want to make sure we get to the end on time. Let me talk a little bit about this slide and then come to the end. So what we believe is that really we have a new opportunity here in education. This is a case study done by Christian Turwish, one of our instructors, who did a case study of Coursera. And he argues that instruction is a trade-off in a Pareto optimal curve between faculty productivity, the number of students that a faculty member can teach in a given amount of time, and student learning outcomes. Personalized instruction like office hours, great learning outcomes, low productivity. Large lecture classes, higher productivity, learning outcomes not so good. He argues that this online technology really gives us a new frontier, which we can use in different ways. We can use it to give people a good education at much, much lower cost to reach those many millions or billions of people who don't have access to education. Or we can use it to keep faculty productivity the same, but increase learning outcomes by personalizing learning experience to students. And so let me just conclude now with this final slide about the opportunity here, and coming back to the very beginning of education for everyone. Currently, 1/3 of our students are in the United States. 40% of them are in the developing world. These are people who, by and large, will never have access to the kind of educational experience that we in the United States have come to take for granted. So we think that there is an amazing opportunity here to take education and turn it from a privilege of the few to a basic human right. So let me just conclude with an anecdote. In September, I attended the launch of the Education First initiative in the United Nations, and they were talking about how when you go to refugee camps in the Congo, where people are living in grass huts on a cup of food a day, and you ask them what they most want, they don't say more food, and they don't say better shelter. They say a better education for their children, because they know that an education is the only opportunity that their children will have to really make a better life for themselves. Thank you very much.